Travis Reier and Chris Walsh of the BamaOnline.com staff from outside Thursday's practice on the University of Alabama campus. And as you can tell, a good day to be indoors in addition to preparing for a game inside the New Orleans, the Louisiana Superdome, I guess you could call it, or Mercedes-Benz, whoever owns those rights. But on January 9th against LSU, weather outside today in Tuscaloosa, not particularly good. Tornado warnings, those two words people in these parts dread hearing, were mentioned earlier in the day, and thankfully no significant weather. Some rough spots here and there, but nothing of note, and we're thankful for that. But as far as football goes, Chris, the time we were able to spend in there looked like, from a health standpoint, team that's in pretty good shape, although one noticeable absence, at least from a injury standpoint, in a redshirt freshman tight end.
Yeah, Harrison Jones, Nick Saban said on Wednesday that he had sustained a hand injury of some sort. So he was not at practice today, and we've not been told yet on how bad that is. But, the fact that he's not there, I think it's pretty telling. Otherwise, pretty healthy across the board. Obviously, they're being cautious with Mark Barron with the rib injury that they don't want to aggravate that at all, and that's just kind of one of those things that takes a little time. So he's not even doing any thumping or anything like that, but he is running drills with teammates in his usual spots.
Wide receiving core a little bit thinned this week with the suspensions of Michael Bowman and Robert Carswell. Also, no sign of Deron Carter this week, at least from my standpoint, on the practice field. But some guys that seem to be coming back pretty well from injury, most notably Darius Hanks with that ankle, seems to be moving around pretty well. And obviously, between he and Mays and Brad Smelly and the rest of those guys, very important parts of this puzzle for Alabama on January 9th.
Yeah, I think the time off did the starting wide receivers especially some good. Hanks, I think he was close to getting back for the Auburn game, but I mean, he looks really good now. I mean, he looks very fluid, doesn't seem to be having any trouble cutting. And, Mays is beat up as well, and people kind of forget that. There were, he had, ankle issues and so forth. So, 3 weeks off. Now we're doing this, then we got a couple more weeks. They're going to be pretty healthy and raring to go, I think, when they play LSU.
Defensively, Phelan Jones looks like he's back in the fold after illness the last couple of days, and a secondary that really has taken on a little bit of a different look when you get down into the dime package, at least, with the injury to Will Lowry and the emergence of Vinny Sunseri, the true freshman at safety in Lowry's place. We saw a little bit of that today during the individual drills, and good news there, Mark Barron looks to be at least okay enough to go through those part of drills.
Yeah, it's kind of the fun thing this time of year is you start to kind of look at some of these guys with an eye to the future, a little bit like Vinny Sunseri. Here's a guy who, this guy could be starting next year for Alabama as far as we know, or he's at least going to be in the mix. And a lot of young guys are getting a lot of reps, and they haven't done anything yet with the scout team, which that's going to happen starting next Wednesday, and that's really when the bowl practices, the intensity starts to pick up.
A little more LSU specific after Christmas, you got to think, and you're right, not much, if any, actually in the way of scout team numbers out there on the practice field. But when you watch individual drills, some of the stuff they do at some of the positions, you know who they're about to play, especially on the defensive side with Jordan Jefferson able to run the ball, some of the zone read stuff, and also some of the stuff in the passing game.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting, though, talking to the players as well, because, we're asking them, like, when, what did you really learn in the first LSU game, and what have you been doing, to kind of prep? And there's obviously a ton of film study that's going on, and what they're really talking about is just paying attention to details. It's the little things, if you do this the right way, it could lead to this kind of thing. I don't think they're going to be, what do they call it, reinventing the wheel or anything like that. I don't think there's going to be any of that from either team, although, who knows. But I think primarily the schemes are pretty much going to be the same, and the attacks are pretty much going to be the same. It's going to come down to a lot of who can execute better in that game.
I don't think there's any doubt the familiarity between these two teams. And you're talking about 7 weeks total of preparation time for 2 games.
Yeah.
They had the 2 weeks before the first game. Mm-hmm. Now they've got, 5 weeks before the next game? I don't. That's got to be unprecedented. I've never heard of that type of. And they already know each other because they cross scout and they see each other a lot when they're preparing for other teams. So this will, the book will have been read a few times by the time these two get together. In terms of what this game means for Alabama, I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's all or nothing in a lot of ways for Alabama. You win this game, you're the national champs. You don't win this game, you beat Arkansas. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. No SEC Western Division title, no SEC title. And I know how big Auburn is, and I know how big Tennessee is to a lot of people in this state. But in terms of quality wins, you don't win in New Orleans, it's basically Arkansas, and that was about it. So that's kind of where the bar has been raised. It's good news, bad news. A lot of years you've been here too. 11-2 would have been, let's get rings or something, but not anymore.
And that's the flip side of having a program that has won 13 national championships and is going to be in the running almost every single year. When you don't do it, there's not a lot of talk in Tuscaloosa about teams that got all the way to the national championship game and then didn't win. Like the team that lost to Notre Dame, I never hear about them. So, yeah, it's everything's really at stake.
But at the same time, you got to appreciate where this program is, and
yeah,
it has, and just a run. When you talk about a 5-year turnaround, it's amazing. I mean, you and I were getting ready to head to Shreveport. That wasn't too long ago to forget. So those back-to-back trips to Shreveport, and God bless Shreveport, great place. We loved it, but New Orleans is a little bit different. And again, the stakes and the accomplishments of these teams the last 3 or 4 years. Unprecedented in a lot of people's lifetimes. So enjoy it while you can. And, and we talk about bowl practice. A lot of people make their way to bowl practices, visitors to practice that we see out there. I know earlier in the week, I think Hootie Ingram, the former Alabama athletics director, is out there. We saw Chris Samuels, the former Alabama offensive lineman, out there a couple of days. And today, Neil Callaway, former Alabama assistant and UAB head coach. So, when you hear these names thrown around, it's not uncommon. There's guys, there's coaches, there's people out there every day. You don't always hear us bring them up. But it is interesting to see, especially with the way the program has come along, all the different people. Joe Montana we've seen in recent years at a practice. Chris Carter, obviously. It seems like it's endless.
And take it a step further, there's so many NFL scouts that have been through those doors. And I'll give an example because I remember one day I walked in and Scott Studwell, who is now with the Minnesota Vikings, he was in there and he was watching Upshaw, and I thought it was really interesting. And a week later, the Vikings had another guy in there watching Upshaw. And granted, the way that they're going to draft this year, I don't think they're going to be taking him. But this has got to be stop number one for all scouts. I mean, this is where you got to be. And 4 first-round draft picks last year. I think we're looking at that again this year. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's almost like Atlanta. If you're traveling, you have to go through Atlanta to get to anywhere. Well, this is kind of, ATL for scouts. They all seem to lay over here for at least a day or two.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we hope you have a very joyous and safe holiday season. I know we feel the same way for all our subscribers out there and everybody checking this out. Have a great holiday season, and I guess we'll catch up in New Orleans, but you'll certainly be on the ground all next week.
Yep, and Merry Christmas to you and your family and everyone else out there.
Likewise. For Chris Walsh, I'm Travis Reier. Keep it right here on BamaOnline.com for more coverage of Crimson Tide football.